Chapter 1. Masks at Midnight. Jory elbowed Varian in the side, interrupting his reverie. "Now there's a beautiful girl," he said, pointing across the crowded ballroom with a little wave of his wine-glass. "Why don't you go and have a word or two with her?" Varian took a long sip from his own glass, in part to avoid having to answer right away. When he did look, he saw a graceful, pale-skinned girl with a pile of startlingly red hair coiffed atop her head. She wore a dress all of shimmering scarlet laid over a white lace undergown that frothed around her bared cleavage, which looked impressive, but it was so hard to tell, the bodices women wore these days. "Strange to see a lady like that unescorted," Jory said a little wistfully. "Swoop now, or be forever alone." Varian restrained himself from scowling. "Is this why you brought me here? To try and play matchmaker? I am not feeling inclined to feminine company tonight." He drank again, found his glass almost empty. The crowd around him was so bedecked in jewels and silks and glittering brocade that it seemed to shine more brightly than the chandeliers above. The ladies wore off-shoulder gowns beaded with pearls and their hair piled high, jewels shining at neck and ear and finger. The men wore tight-waisted coats and high collars, hair carefully oiled into curls or gathered back with ribbons. Masks were standard at these parties, and many of the revelers sported one, golden or black or fraught with peacock feathers. More ladies than men wore them, some held on with hairpins or ribbons, some on delicate little sticks. The whole spectacle just reminded him how out of fashion his own clothes were, and he shifted uncomfortably against the waistcoat that didn't quite fit right anymore. Now he wished he did have a mask. "I never should have let you drag me out here," he said, sounding more dire than he felt, which Jory knew full well. "Oh, stuff and nonsense." Jory leaned in behind him, peering over the shoulder of his taller friend. "Can't have a count pining away in his house alone all the time. Looks bad. And besides, there are so many elegant and—" He paused to peruse some particularly delectable cleavage passing by. "Well-bred ladies at these parties. I can't in good conscience chase after them any more, so I shall have to engage vicariously. Through you." He took another drink. "So, engage." The reason Jory couldn't womanize came swanning up beside them at that moment, fanning herself gently and looking happy. Jory's wife Denora was blonde and pretty in a dignified way. Her gown was considerably more modest than most of the offerings tonight, and her ringleted hair was, if not entirely restrained, at least tasteful. Her mask was a delicate little thing of silver filigree that did little to hide her face. "What are you two rakes plotting?" she said easily, taking Jory's arm. He was daring to lecture his liege on the conduct of his life, Varian said. "I was rhapsodizing about pleasures of married life," Jory said smoothly, "pointing out that there are numerous fine young ladies present at an event such as this, no doubt many of whom would be delighted to be paid court by a handsome count." He finished his wine, indicated the lady in question with his empty glass. "Her, for example." Denora squinted at the redhead, pursed her lips. "I don't recognize her. That must be one of Duke Garin's courtesans, hired for the party. Husband, pray refrain from recommending prostitutes to Milord Jezerin." Varian laughed quietly at that, eyeing Nora just a little. She and Jory were so happy together that he always felt just a bit ashamed of how attractive he found her. It's one thing to appreciate, even envy, the wife of a friend. It's another thing entirely to hold a desire one can never voice. She was proper and decorous and mannerly, which only made him yearn to see her wanton, even once. It was inappropriate, but the images had a way of sticking in the mind. He turned away and looked to the redhead again, who seemed to be searching the crowd. He saw her profile now, caught by the clean line of it, by the contrast of her porcelain skin with the elegant red mask that covered her eyes. She held very still, hands folded, poised, as though watching for something, or someone, intriguing. "A courtesan," he said. "Lady, I am not certain it is possible to judge a woman's character at such a distance." Denora snorted. "If she were well born, I would know her already. I'll tell you that much." She tapped him gently with her fan. "Nobody that beautiful remains a nobody for long." "Well then," Varian said, handing off his glass to a passing servant, "I shall go and take a closer look." He squared his shoulders and made his way along the edges of the dance floor, arms waving in his peripheral vision like branches in a wind, while Denora's scoff followed behind. He waylaid a servant on the way over and took 2 glasses of wine with him. The closer he came, the more he liked what he saw. She was shorter than he thought, lent height by her stillness and her posture, straight-backed but not stiff. Her hair was really a marvel, great curls of red pinned here and there with winking green and blue jewels, a few spirals of it tickling the back of her neck and hanging over the deep, velvety red of her mask. She didn't turn to face him, but he had the sense she knew he was there. Gathering himself, he brushed her sleeve with his arm and offered her a glass of wine when she turned. He'd readied a glib opening of conversation, but at this range her gaze stuck his tongue to the roof of his mouth. Her wide eyes, glittering through her mask, were perfectly balanced between blue and green, picked up by the jewels in her hair. Her lashes fluttered like butterfly wings, and his dashing words sputtered out like quenched coals. Instead, he wordlessly offered the glass, and to his relief she took it, just a slight tilt of one brow acknowledging his presence. She swirled the wine in the glass, sniffed it delicately, and then sipped, barely touching the red to her lips. She watched him the entire time, seemingly at ease, and it was disconcerting. "And you are?" Varian. That is, Count Varian Jezerin, Count of Hannavale," he said, resisting the urge to sidle uncomfortably. "Count, is it?" she said. "Yes, indeed." He glanced away, already feeling a bit ridiculous. "You said that part twice," she said, smiling a little. "I gather you wanted to make sure I knew it." "Oh, well, when one approaches a strange lady, it generally behooves to put one's best foot forward." He fought to regain some of his composure. She was damnably beautiful, and he wanted very badly to see the rest of her face. In truth, he wanted to see all of her, and find if she was that smoothly pale everywhere. She lifted that eyebrow again. "And this is your best foot?" She had a husky voice, with an accent he couldn't quite place. She wasn't from the city, that was for certain. "No, not really," he said. "I seem to be a bit off my game." I wonder why." She took another sip, and he remembered his drink. He tried to drink nonchalantly, but he was pretty sure it came out hasty. "Well, I suppose it could be because you are obviously the most beautiful woman at this ridiculous party, and here you stand all alone." He steeled himself for scorn, but she only laughed lightly. "You cannot even see my face," she said, brushing lightly at the red feathers that decorated the right side of her mask. "Perhaps under this I am scarred and horrible." "That's a chance I would be more than willing to take," he said. He moved a little closer, and she did not move away. She smelled delightful, some kind of perfume, half musk and half honey, a carnal scent, bolder than was fashionable, but also more rousing. "Dance with me." Her marvelous eyes flicked to the side. "No one is dancing." He looked and saw that, indeed, the dance had broken up. A look up at the gallery showed the musicians absent, taking a pause to rest, no doubt. He hadn't even heard the music stop. He snorted. Indeed, how thoughtless of them. He turned to offer his arm. "Walk in the garden with me, then. I promise my conversation will improve." "I may," she said, "but I have another appointment I must keep." She laid a hand on his arm. "But if you are here when I am done, then perhaps." "That is the gentlest refusal I have ever received," he said, knowing her words with a curtsy before the exit, and finding that it didn't much draw the sting. He lifted his glass. "Well done, lady. Might I at least have your name?" She smiled, and it was a real smile that took his breath away. She chimed her glass against his and leaned in close. "No."